Hi, I have been over the years in dealing with students perplexed by the topic of postgraduate education. As a teacher of some 35-40 years experience, who should I encourage to do postgraduate education? As a student, when does a student decide when he needs postgraduate education? These questions are involved, and I'm 100% sure that even if you had all the time in the world, I won't be able to conclusively answer any of these questions. So, as a teacher, I take the stand that anybody who desires to study, who has completed an undergraduate education and obtained the degree, is capable of doing a postgraduate course. However, as a student, the situation is different because there are financial liabilities, there is time spent without earning, families are thinking in terms of other, shall we say, priority watershed marks in your life. And simply put, there are pressures outside of education that must be dealt with. Now, what is the difference between MS and PhD? And why should anybody after a BTech or a BE do an MS, ME, or an MTech, or for that matter, a PhD? Undergraduate education often is like a funnel at its widest portion. You are given gross generalities, and when I say gross, I mean gross, very wide generalities which are good enough to apply just about anywhere. I mean, mathematics is a classic example. You're taught maths in your undergraduate education, and maths is applicable to just about any field you can think of. You can't survive in any field of undergraduate study or even postgraduate study without a lot of maths. So you're given the basics, you're given not just the building blocks, you're given the very foundation itself. It is that foundation, if it is firmly put in place, that carries the weight of any other learning that you may accrue as time goes by. Unfortunately, as Bernard Shaw once said, wisdom is wasted on the old and youth is wasted on the young. So we don't often take our undergraduate education seriously enough. That's a totally different topic. Coming back to what we are discussing, it's my contention, and it is a hypothesis that I offer to you, that a master's degree program was created to act as any one of two things. One, as a channel to give you specialized education, and second, as a channel that allows you to get a foretaste, if you will, a peek at doctoral program, what you can do, how you can do it. You see the idea of research, how it is performed. You see how paper publications are done. The MS program probably has, if you think in terms of the funnel, MS program probably has less than 50% of the focus area as an undergraduate program has. For instance, MS in applied mechanics. You'll be focusing predominantly on the structural aspects in mechanical engineering. Now, given that an MS is a bridge course between undergraduate and PhD, who should do an MS? An MS is done by a person who wants a specialized knowledge in a particular field, like I just now said, in applied mechanics. He may take that personal knowledge. Please note I said he may take the personal knowledge and specialize even more in the form of a PhD, or he may stop right after master's. Having a master's degree definitely is an advantage in employment because it puts you a cut above the rest of the group. What emerges from all this is that a person doing MS has a significantly higher level of passion towards learning. In the olden days, 1960s, 70s, and 80s, IITs were created subsequently. NIITs were created. At that time, they were called Regional Engineering Colleges or RECs. All of these were created to put out engineers, quality engineers. IITs in particular were created in the four corners of India for the exclusive purpose of being centers of excellence in engineering education, just the same way ails were created. Now, of course, the situation is dramatically different. Practically every state has an IIT, and access to IITs has become not much different from those days. We will address the topic a little later. Nowadays, there are private engineering colleges that run postgraduate programs, PhD programs. There are private universities. There are deemed universities. There are private colleges which are part of existing government universities, and so on. In short, access to education is significantly more than what it was in my time. The next thing we should look at is what is the status of postgraduate education in India? Postgraduate education in India was, to put it very simply, terrible in the earlier days. There were probably less than 20 or 25 colleges that could give a postgraduate education in engineering. And of that 25 colleges, probably less than half were capable of giving quality education. People got typically postgraduate education with a view that, okay, it's required before a PhD. Very often, postgraduate education in the past was undertaken because somebody couldn't find a job, something that still exists now. What one has to remember is postgraduate education in India was also a victim of another aspect. The colleges that were there did not have adequate technical infrastructure, equipment, testing equipment, laboratories, high-speed computing. Computing itself is a thing that entered India in the 90s on a scale where it penetrated up to our level. I remember when I returned from US in the late 80s, one of the greatest attractions in my house was the desktop computer that I had brought back from the US. That any visitor to the house had to see that first. Postgraduate education in India has improved by leaps and bounds now. Every private engineering college worth its name has its own high-speed computing data center. It has a lot of laboratories, centers of excellence, lot of specialized laboratories, research and development groups, qualified faculty who have done a lot of publications, who have done a lot of research, who have had grants in the industries, and so on and so forth. So to sum up this topic, about all I will say is offer you some data for comparison so that you can come to your own decision. An MS, MTech or an ME in India costs you under 10 lakhs. An MS abroad will cost you about anywhere from 50 lakhs to 1 crore. Understand that you're going to do a PhD later. Why would you spend that money on the MS? Understand that you may want to do the PhD abroad, which is where the emphasis is going to be, because once you do PhD, nobody asks you where you did your master's, where you did your undergraduate. Given that, why spend the money here in MS level when you can spend it at PhD level by maybe going abroad if your field still demands that? In my day, everything demanded, every field had to go out to get a quality education. That's not so now in India. There are some very good colleges available which will compare very favorably on par with quite a few colleges in the US or UK. So ask yourself the question, you are going to raise the funds, take a loan. Is it worth it for a master's or is it worth it for a PhD? Think about that. Now, I have said what a student ought to do. I mean, the most important thing, of course, is a student has to pay attention in the class and undergraduate program and learn his foundation well. That I didn't think needs to be belabored. Everybody is saying that everywhere, but people are still absent from classes. Now, what should the government do for postgraduate education? I submit the government needs to do a few things. The first one is capacity building. All colleges must be told that they must carry capacity for admission to postgraduate programs, which is at least 50% of their capacity for undergraduate programs. If you take on 100 students in BTech level, you should be able to take on 50 students at MTech level. This means better qualified faculty. This means better funded laboratories. This means better infrastructure. I also submit something very, very simple. Colleges need to take postgraduate educations more seriously. Yes, particularly in the private sector, where colleges see postgraduate education predominantly as additional source of income, to use a time-honored phrase, side business. They need to realize that a sound postgraduate program can reward them with a quality reputation that will pay dividends which they cannot even imagine. Where do you think those fantastic top three colleges in the US or UK, how do they get their name? They get their name because they have a reputation for quality research, quality publications, and that's definitely not coming from undergraduate levels. It's coming from postgraduate levels. This is something our government and our people are yet to realize. We need to clamor for capacity building. We need to clamor for funds. We need to also look and restructure the philosophy behind GATE a little bit. GATE is scaring quite a few people away from postgraduate education. In India, many of them end up abroad. GATE has been perceived to be something that keeps people out. Only a few quality people are allowed in. Now, this is fundamentally wrong, because if you are going to run a system or a process that generates quality people, it must be based on merit. It must be inclusive, not exclusive. Unless you include 100, the 10 won't shine amongst that 100. The lowest level of GATE must be revised to absorb the top 30% of undergraduate graduates, people who come out of the BTech program. Right now, there is a yawning abyss of a gap between the lowest level of GATE and the highest level of undergraduates. We need to look at the philosophy behind GATE a little better. Second, we need to also come up with a methodology by which people can access postgraduate programs because they are competent to access. I know many people who are geniuses who cannot sit and write a written exam or face down and answer an interview. Should those people suffer all through their life just because they can't do these two silly things? I remember a long time ago, a faculty member told me something which has stuck in my mind all these years. A student who gets good marks in an exam shows only one thing, that at that point in time, he had the mental recall and the analytical ability to answer. If he had taken the exam 3 hours later and he was a little more confused, he would have failed. Not an exam represents a passing or clearing an exam with merit represents nothing more than the fact. Of course, it says good things about the student, but it also represents only the ability of the student at that point in time. What we really need to look at is encouraging the students to grow, to be held inclusively in India, to integrate them into the system in India, so that people in this country help this country to grow. I don't want to belabor this subject more because it is a sensitive topic. I am not one of those people who go around shouting Jai Hind and all that. I'm just an ordinary person who does things practically. I know things are very difficult right now because of COVID. Many of you are down, depressed, unhappy, wondering where the future is going. Trust me when I say this. At my age, if I can say this, you definitely can believe it at your age. Your future is going to go places. You will grow leaps and bounds. At the age of 22 and 23, 6 months to 1 year loss is nothing. You will make it up in no time. One single promotion will put you on your feet. So be not concerned. Industry is changing. It is going through a paradigm shift, a quantum leap, if you will. And methods of working are falling in place which have not been imagined of before. I mean, whoever thought you'd get a salary working from home, wearing your shorts and t-shirt? Well, I have adapted to it. Can't you at a young age? I wish you all the very best of luck. God bless. Thank you.